This is the Runners Up Club, a podcast about unsung heroes, lovable losers, and forgotten failures. For those with a few minutes to spend on those who spent theirs in a losing cause.
Hi folks, Ray Gustinelli here. Welcome to the Runners Up Club, a series about second and third bests. We're talking about folks who were not the poster childs for their respective domains. And in today's case, that metaphor is quite apt if we're talking about movie posters. Set three guys up over whiskeys to debate the greatest comedian of the silent film era, and at the end of the night, the guy for Charlie Chaplin and the guy for Buster Keaton will still be counter-slurring the relative merits of the Little Tramp and the Great Stoneface, City Lights, and the General, while the guy for Harold Lloyd will have retired to a vacant corner, murmuring to himself about the Glasses character and staring wistfully at the clock. He's wishing the night would end. He knows he's got no shot, but he's also holding on to his guy's best moment. Because that's what Lloyd did, hang on to the clock. In one of the most iconic scenes in movie history. Watch it on the interwebs if you haven't seen it, or just wait until the next Oscars. They'll likely have some tribute to the magic of cinema or some such that's bound to feature it. Of course, from the standpoint of dueling iconography, the other guys have equally memorable moments. If we're focusing on physical comedy, Chaplin caught in the gears of a machine in modern times, and a house facade falling around Keaton in Steamboat Bill will also be included in that Oscar reel. And in the minds of many, probably edge out our man Lloyd here's clock scene. But that's our vantage from the year 2020-something. The picture from 1920-something was quite different. The 1920s were Harold Lloyd's decade. He outshone Chaplin by many measures. Here's a few. Total films released, 12-3, Lloyd. Total box office grosses, 15 million give or take, to 10 million, Lloyd. A survey of fan favorites from the mid-20s by Photoplay magazine had Harold Lloyd in the top 7 most popular film stars. Chaplin was not ranked at all. In another one, Lloyd was third behind Gloria Swanson and someone named Ramon Navarro. Chaplin was 14th. In the estimation of some, Harold Lloyd was not only the most popular comedian of the silent era, but the biggest Hollywood star, period. Things changed in the 1930s, for Lloyd as compared to Chaplin, and of course for just about everyone. The 30s were a lot less swinging, shall we say, and a lot more depressing. Well, before we get to that turning point, let's go back to the beginning. Harold Lloyd was born to a theater-loving mother in 1888. Mom and Dad and an older brother relocated every few years to towns in Nebraska and Colorado, never quite settling down. Dad found it hard to hold down a steady job, apparently, and partly for that reason, Mom left Dad in 1910. The boys split time between them for a while before the Lloyd men, Sans mom, moved to San Diego in 1912. Harold went to high school there, he worked in repertory theater, but he soon set his sights on making it in the burgeoning film industry just up the road. In LA, he hooked up with Hal Roach. You've heard of him, perhaps, the pioneering filmmaker, producer, director, and writer. He was in his early days too when he met Lloyd. This was a friendship made in film heaven. Together these two, Lloyd on-screen, Roach behind it, started producing and releasing motion pictures in the 19-teens, shorts and features both, that greatly pleased the masses. Lloyd's first character of note was called Lonesome Luke. It was pretty much a knockoff of Chaplin's Little Tramp character. Lonesome Luke wore too small clothes to the Tramp's oversized clothes, and he had a gap in his mustache, cosmetic changes that were fooling no one. Though they amused everyone, the crowds gobbled up the Tramp-adjacent Luke, despite the absence of Chaplin on the marquee. At this point, Lloyd could have coasted along making big bang for himself and his film's backers for quite a while, but he wasn't satisfied. He was regularly being mistaken for Chaplin or compared unfavorably to him. He itched to make his own mark. A couple of problems with that. The studios, low risk then as now, didn't particularly care to experiment with a new formula when a proven one was at hand. They'd be fine if Lloyd and Roach just kept cranking out Lonesome Luke flicks. More importantly, Lloyd hadn't yet developed his own unique character. He hadn't found his own silent comic voice, if you will. That emerged around 1916 with the first inspiration for what would become his signature persona, an American everyman called the Glasses character, so named because of the nerdy horn rims he wore. Now, you might be thinking, glasses do not scream comic genius. And you'd be right. But they do differentiate the character, more notable for what they are not. They are not Chaplin's bowler hat and mustache, and they are not Harold Lloyd's glasses. Lloyd didn't wear glasses at that time, the glasses were just empty frames. Lloyd was a pretty good-looking guy, in fact, the sort you might think would have no problem getting the girl, or getting the job, or making it in the city, or whatever. The glasses helped to normalize him, and establish the character as vulnerable and worthy of the audience's empathy. It worked. This Glasses character first ran in a series of shorts until the studio was convinced it was worth headlining, and then took center stage, appearing in dozens of one-reelers and feature-length movies through the 20s and 30s. The character took different forms in different movies. He could be a cowardly young man, a rich layabout, a stuttering guy looking for love, a henpecked husband. He was a poor country doctor in Dr. Jack, a college kid desperate for popularity in The Freshman, and he was a lowly department store clerk in Safety Last, where the clock scene appears. Here's a bit from a 1964 interview where Lloyd explains how he got the inspiration to thrill crowds by climbing buildings.
I was walking up 7th Street, and around about 7th and on 7th Street, round hill, a little past hill where the Brockman building is. And there was a tremendous crowd there, maybe 200 or 300 people or more. And I inquired what was going on. They said, a man's going to scale this building. And I said, really? So I stood around and sure did. They came in, they had a ceremony, they introduced him, and he started climbing, and he got about 3 floors, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I just knew he was going to be killed, so I walked on up the street. And I didn't want to leave. If anything happened, I was going to be there to see what it's all about. And so I went around the corner where I couldn't see him, and lots of people were up there too. And I said, where is he now? I said, oh, he's about the 5th floor. Really? And then I'd peek around, sure, he was, and no ledges on it. He was climbing from window to window. And so I peeked around and waited until he finally got to the top. And of course, the crowd were absolutely thrilled. And it had such a reaction on this group of people and on myself that I said, well, now, if it can have that and you do it properly on the screen, it should have the same results.
Should have, and did have. The setup in Safety Last is that Lloyd's character is a young man trying to make it in the big city. He's trying to earn $1,000 by attracting a crowd to a department store by scaling the walls. The clock part comes about midway through an extended climbing sequence. It reads 2:45 when Lloyd jumps onto the big hand, then 2:30, and it's 6:30, both hands down, Lloyd clinging. When the top of the clock comes loose, Lloyd's hat flies off. He dangles frantically over the downtown Los Angeles streets, 12 stories below. From there, there's a few more brushes with death, Lloyd wobbling along a ledge, his character swinging from a high rope, before he makes it to the top to embrace his movie girlfriend and real-life wife, Mildred Davis. It really is an awesome scene, about 7 minutes front to back. I watched it again recently for the first time in maybe 40 years. Here to say, it holds up, for me anyway, much more than just a period piece. Okay, we noted at the outset that after being among the most popular stars of the 20s, the turning of the decade marked a reversal for Lloyd. If not in his overall fortunes, he continued to make lots of successful films, then certainly in respect to his standing relative to Chaplin. He still outproduced Chaplin, releasing 5 films to Chaplin's 2 in the 30s, but Chaplin's 2 were City Lights and Modern Times, bona fide classics. More importantly, were the go-getter Glasses character, the striver angling for the big break in a world of opportunity, resonated in the swinging 20s, it was out of step in the Depression era. Another, perhaps less generous perspective is to say the Glasses character lacked something that might have made it more enduring. The Tramp character possessed a certain poignancy or poetic element that brought him into the hearts of audiences and critics. And fairly or not, the same might be said of the comedians themselves. Chaplin lived a sort of rags to riches story, born to near Dickensian poverty in Britain, bootstrapping his way into the limelight, the title of his last classic from 1952, and of course living in exile from his adopted land in his later life, driven by his purported moral turpitude and communist leanings. Lloyd's voyage to Hollywood, as we saw, started in all-American Nebraska, the birthplace of another everyman comedian, Johnny Carson, and ended in a Beverly Hills mansion married to his leading lady. Precious few tears on this clown. Lloyd received an honorary Oscar in '53 as a master comedian and good citizen. The good citizen part was seen as a none too subtle slap at Chaplin from the Academy for his leftist political leanings in the McCarthy era. But it was also well earned on the merits. Lloyd was truly a good citizen. He was active in civic and charitable institutions in his later years, a member of the Freemasons and the Shriners. In fact, he was top dog, the imperial potentate of the Shriners of North America in '49, a position I assume that granted him license not to have to wear those silly hats and drive around in those tiny cars in the Shriners' eponymous parades. Harold Lloyd had long since paid his dues to the cause of other men's mirth. By this time, mid-century, Lloyd's days atop the marquee were behind him, the silent film era was long since gone, and the canon of critical consensus was already becoming quite well established. Today, Safety Last and The Freshman are considered silent film comedy classics, but you'll not find them on many best films of all time lists where Chaplin's films, particularly City Lights, The Gold Rush, and Modern Times, and Keaton's The General, tend to make frequent appearances. Popular consensus puts Chaplin over Keaton over Lloyd, with Harry Langdon sometimes thrown in to appease the anti-Trinitarians amongst us who prefer a big four to a big three. But they all have their champions in the critical community, and it's encouraging to see many studies end with an admission that determining greatness on any absolute scale is a fool's errand, particularly in a field like comedy, where fools predominate. Okay, here's a final tidbit for you. A twist that might mean absolutely nothing, or might hold the key to understanding something special about Harold Lloyd. In 1919, before his career really took off, he'd almost died on set. He was posing for publicity stills. One called for lighting a cigarette from a lit bomb fuse. The nonchalant clown. Well, an actual live bomb got mixed in with the fake prop bombs. Why these Hollywood folks insist on having live ammo anywhere near a set, I have no idea. Well, in the way of these things, then as now, in Los Angeles as in New Mexico, the damn thing goes off. He's holding the bomb inches from his face when it explodes, blowing out the windows and tearing a hole in the 16-foot-high ceiling. His face becomes, in his own words, raw meat. His right hand loses half the index finger, the whole thumb, and much of the palm. That's right, the guy best known for hanging onto a clock is doing so with half a hand. Keep that in mind in case you wind up as that third person at the bar, over whiskeys, listening to the Chaplin champion and the Buster Booster drone on about their guy's comic brilliance. But here's my advice, don't sit that debate out. Join it. You can mention the half hand, sure, that might get the other guys nodding in mock sympathy, but now that you've got their attention, the real argument is to be made with the eyes. Pull out your phone, play the assembly line scene from Modern Times, Chaplin caught in the gears. And play the falling facade scene from Steamboat Bill, Keaton in the window. And then play the clock scene from Safety Last, front to back, all 7+ minutes. You may not get a concession speech from either of the other guys, but I'm betting this might end the debate for the moment. The three of you can clink your glasses, toast the triumvirate of comic genius on display. Glance at the clock now, and you're not wishing the night would end. In fact, it's early. There's still plenty of time before last call. That's my tight 10 for today. More like a loose 10, I suppose. A tight 15, we'll call it. Thanks so much for joining. I'll see you next time.
This podcast is created, written, and performed by Ray Augustinelli, and produced by, with original music by, Bad Hat Media. Find more at runnersupclub.com. Until next time, keep running.